I can see it. And there we go. Nneka, how are you doing today?
I am good. I am good. I like the hat.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying something a little bit new here today.
I like it.
Listen, first of all, how are you doing?
I am
How's
good.
everything?
I am
Good,
good.
good.
It's
You had a
cold,
good.
but I'm good.
Oh, what's the temperature out there?
It was probably like 30, and it's very windy. I
Oh
felt like
yeah,
my roof was going to be blown off because it's just that wind. It's been that windy here.
same here. It is. It's crazy here. We're having some unusual temperatures. It was warm, then it's been
Mhm.
cold. It snowed. I'm like, what in the world is going on?
I
Please
know
make up your
all
mind.
before the storm.
In any event, I am super excited to be on with you again on this evening. And I must say, I am going to be following in your footsteps on today
Okay.
because this is definitely your area. This is definitely something that you can speak to a lot more than I can. I'm going to be chiming in, but
But you can,
I know. All right, so here we go.
Michael.
Softness or manipulation. Let's talk about toxic femininity. And
Okay.
so that's the title of tonight's show. But what we got to do, we got to kind of go back, I think, just a little bit, right? Because last week was wonderful where you explained, and thank you again for the explanation, where you talked about what masculinity is and what masculinity is not. Same thing for being a feminine or being feminism and what it is and what it is not. So I
Right.
think if we start from that perspective before we get into this, I think it would do, at least for me, it would do a great deal of help. It'll be a great deal of help.
What to kind of go into the different kind?
Yeah, well, so just defining, because remember last week we talked about what masculinity is. And when you typically think about masculinity, you associate that with being a man. You don't normally associate that
Right.
with being a female.
Right.
But you explained it in such a way where it makes absolute perfect sense. And so I want to start from that perspective
Yeah.
as opposed to, and then we'll, jump straight into what we're doing tonight. If that's okay with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So just like you said, recap a little bit in terms of healthy masculinity, uh, and toxic masculinity. So
Mhm.
healthy, like you said, but they're traits. We talked about it's not a biological thing; they're traits. And
Mhm.
so when you think about unhealthy masculinity, it's that just kind of controlling, dominant type of behavior. And then when you think about unhealthy femininity, it's the manipulation and control. It's that. And so, but again, these are traits and it's all come from life experiences. But
Mhm.
most people want to say, when they think about femininity, they want to think about nurturing, caregiving, healthy vulnerability, control, self-respect when they think about healthy femininity. But again, like we all said last week, it applies to both sexes. It's not geared toward a particular sex. All people can have healthy traits or unhealthy traits. And so that's where we are today. We're talking about toxic femininity. And people
Mm-mm.
people scratch their head when we say that, like, what? How can that be toxic? But it can. It
Mhm.
really can. So that's what we're gonna get into tonight.
All right, young lady. Well, you go ahead and do your thing while I
Okay.
sit back and listen to
So you're
this.
gonna dig in. Okay. So one of the things that we got to consider, where does it start, Michael? Where does it start? There's multiple ways that toxic femininity can start. It can
Mhm.
start in the house, be it a positive experience or a negative experience. Think about your girls, daddy's girls. What my
Mm.
babies want, they gonna get. And I'm gonna tell you, the man that come into your life, he better be able to take care of you like daddy take care of you. If he can't do this and he can't do that, so that's that's a way it can start. And then it can also start in a way where a person is neglected.
Mm.
So they feel like they have to manipulate situations to get what they want. So then we have the Karens of the world.
Mm.
Save me, help, that type of thing, abusing their femininity to get help. So it can come from all different places. And I think we got to be sensitive to, where did it come from? But
Mhm.
when you think about femininity, you definitely want to think about positive. But in some cases, it's really negative, and it depends on where it comes from. So, Michael, what did you teach your girls coming up? They put on the crocodile tear. Please, daddy, bat the little eye. But please, mommy said no, but what but I really want it. And what do you do?
So this was one thing my Steph and I did early on. We taught the girls don't do that
Oh,
because that could get you in some very serious trouble trying to play one against the other. And
okay.
so they knew, and they still know. Don't try to be slick. Don't ask her for something you know you can't get from me, and vice versa.
Okay.
So if she said no, the answer is no. If I said yes, the answer is yes. Now sometimes she and I, Steph and I, will go back in the background and we talk about it, and I say, well, I don't know. I mean, for me, that's not all that big a deal. I understand it's a big deal for you. I'll do it because I'm not that concerned with, doing it. But if you don't want it done, then I guess we won't do it. But should we not do it? Or, and then she'll say, well, I think we should. And I'm like, I don't think we should. But we would talk about it amongst ourselves. If we changed our minds, then we would change it as a united front, not as daddy said or mommy said, because then you can play the game.
That's true. That's true. But you have so many men out there, Michael, that are saying, you better take care of my daughter. I mean, I get that, right? But sometimes they misuse that. And so when you provide your daughter with all these different material things, fancy cars and, designer this and designer that, there's an expectation that said man is supposed to provide that same thing. And what if they can't provide it? Then there's that manipulation, right? Instead of communication. And I want to get off into that. Like, what is manipulation versus communication? Well, you should know what I need. You don't know me by now. Manipulate. You mean to tell me you don't know what I need? Instead of just communicating, do I got to read your mind? That's manipulation versus communication. We're not you guys aren't mind readers. Tell me what you don't try to manipulate the situation and say, well, you should know what I need. No, communicate to me what you need.
That's good, Nneka. I know. So my wife and I, when we do the counseling or coaching rather with married couples and people who want to be married, one of the things we tell them is, a man is not a mind reader, and neither is your wife. She's not a mind reader. If you don't tell them, there's no way in the world they can know. And so we operate from a perspective of effective communication, meaning everybody understands what's going on. What I said, you understood as I meant it, not as you think I meant it. For example, if I said take out the trash, I didn't mean take a can out the trash and take it outside. I mean take the trash outside, the whole bag. Take the bag out the trash can, take it to the garbage outside, come back, put a trash bag in the trash can, make sure everything is cleaned up, put the lid down. That's what we mean when we say take the trash out.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
So not, just understanding what exactly do we mean.
Yes, exactly. And then you have, again, the manipulation and the communication. Then you have the crocodile tears. The person is trying to avoid having a conversation. I'm going to be honest with you, Michael. I've been known to do that a time or two.
Not you. You don't seem to be that type of person.
I've done it one time. Well, you know what? I've done it a couple of times. I'm going to be honest, but you don't know that that's what you're doing. Let's just say me and Fred are having a disagreement and I'm really upset. And sometimes we know crying can, kind of slow things down a bit. So you do it one time and you're not intentionally doing it, but you do it. So when you saw what happened the first time, you said, I'm going to do this again.
Nneka.
We got to be transparent, right, Michael? We got to be
honest. I'm snitching. I'm snitching, Fred.
Right. So I have done it a time or two. I'm not proud of it and I don't make a habit of it, but I'm sure most women, if not all, and I'm going to use all in this case.
Where you at, ladies?
We have manipulated the situation because we wanted to shut it down. We wanted to shut that conversation down. And that's the real. And I'm sure men have done that too.
So hold on one second, Nneka. So ladies, have you done this? Is this a tactic that you employ? Is this something that's often used to end a conversation, to get out of a conversation, to manipulate the conversation? I want to hear from you, ladies. Jump in the comments. Men, we'd love to have you jump in the comments as well. Go ahead, Nneka.
And I think we got to be careful. We just got to be careful not to, if you know that you're doing it, sometimes we're not aware, right? And if you're not aware of it, then you will just continue to do it. But most women, we're very bright. We're very bright creatures. We know what we're doing in most cases. And it's important not to make a habit of that. It's just like, again, it's manipulation versus communication. We don't want to manipulate a situation. Just communicate. You ain't got to cry to kind of shut things down. You ain't got to say, well, you should know what I need. It's unnecessary and it gets you nowhere. It gets you nowhere.
And I'm gonna tell you something else from a man's perspective. It's very frustrating to hear women say, "You should know what I need." I mean, what does that mean? I mean, I'm not a mind reader, right? I'm not your father. I remember one time, in all transparency, I remember one time Steph and I had this argument. I'll never forget it. We were, I know exactly where we were. We were driving in the car on Suitland Parkway, headed to the cleaners, and we were talking, and I left my wallet. This when I was young. We were dating then. I left my wallet at home by mistake. And she was like, "How could you forget your wallet?" I was like, "It's a simple mistake." She's like, "You don't want to pay for it?" I'm like, "Whoa, wait, stop." As many times I've paid for things and done things, I'll give you the money back. And then I realized in the moment it was something that triggered her that happened with her dad. And I had to tell her, I said, "I'm not your father. I'm Michael Johnson, right? I'm not your father.
Right.
Don't hold that which happened with him against me." And so she was like, "Well, this," I said, no. We're going to stop this now. Before it gets started, we're going to stop it now. Just because something happened that was similar to what happened with your dad, I'm not going to let you hold that against me.
Oh, yeah.
If it's something I did, of course I have to take accountability for, but that's not me. That was him. And don't do me like that because what I saw, Nneka, I was like, well, if she does this time, how many more times could this happen with things that could trigger her? And I had to tell us, like, if it's something that, you need to talk to your dad about, or you feel a way, you should talk to him about it. Because I don't want to hear another thing about it after this. Like, I did this one time. I got a track record that's clean, like 30-0, maybe 31 and 30-1 now because I messed this up. But 30-1, that's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
And so we had a good understanding there. I told her, I said, I'm not going to do that with my mother, with you, because you're not my mother. I'm not going to do that. So don't do that to me. And that was actually for any other man that may have happened to. Like if it was some other person, don't compare me to them. I'm not them. And what if I did that to you? Where would you fall? So no, let's not do that.
But you know what? It is so easy to do that, Michael, when you haven't had your father the way you need it. For a woman, when you haven't had your father the way you needed them. And so something will be triggered. And it's not intentional, but I can see how that would kind of be upsetting to you and upsetting to her, because what she's done was she's reached back and, from an old memory that she may have experienced with her father and applying it to you. So I can see how that can get a little messy when something that happens, but it's good to just communicate, talk it out. You don't kind of, she could have just stayed there and been in her head about it.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna let it stay there because I was like, I could see how this could, not saying that it would have happened, but I could see how it could happen where every little thing is a trigger. And I was like, no, let's make sure we delineate him from me. We can't, no, we're not gonna do that. And then let's talk about if something is triggering you about him. I think you should talk to him honestly. I always tell my wife, I said, listen, men or fathers rather, we don't always get it right. A lot of times men come into fatherhood because it's them coming into it, but they never had an example. The father may have not been there. He may have been absent, or he may have been present in the household, but wasn't a present father. And so for a lot of us, we had to learn on the fly. And I gave her father the benefit. And I said, I think he may have had to learn on the fly, but you should talk to him. But I bet he's never talked to you about it. What he's done is he's sucked up a lot of stuff and not said anything. I won't be that type of person because I'm not that kind of guy. He is. I'm gonna stop you in your tracks and tell you, no. Let's fix this right here.
It's good. And it kind of goes back to like a victim mentality. And I think we can do that because we will blame a man or somebody else for something that somebody else did. And so that victim mentality is something that definitely needs to be explored. It's just like, we don't want to, find ourselves always blaming someone for, whatever happens, in the relationship. It's always a blame, trying to find fault, making someone feel guilty. So that victim mentality is very, again, we go back to the Karens of the world. That very well is something that happens when you are trying to manipulate a situation so it can go your way.
This idea though of toxic femininity, I really want to delve into this because a lot of times we don't realize that men actually can can operate in this space, right? And let's talk about that for a little bit, and then let's get deep into what toxic feminine look like from a woman's standpoint, because that's all I can do is nod my head and agree with you and say, yep, if that's what you say it is, that's what it is.
Yeah, but you've experienced it too, though. I'm sure. Like I said, just just in day-to-day life, we see it all the time.
For example,
I'm sorry.
Say for example.
For example, people weaponizing the police. On a black man.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
You walk in and I don't know if you remember the guy who was in the park, he was bird watching
in New York, Central Park.
Yeah, exactly. And this lady had a dog. She wasn't supposed to have a dog. And he just kindly said, hey, can you please, I'm bird watching and your dog is scaring the birds. And she got all upset, and literally they were like 6 feet apart from each other. She called the police. Oh my gosh, I'm scared. Help me. So it's that victim mentality. It's just like no one's bringing any harm or danger to you, but you are this damsel in distress. You want help, or you wanted things to go your way. So now you're the victim. And so that case, I mean, that's an extreme case. But just like in relationships, you have this victim mentality. Let's say somebody does something similar. And I'm not saying that your wife played the victim, but in a sense, when you didn't bring your wallet, and you associate what happened to you in the past to this current situation. So that's kind of the victim mentality. There's so many different scenarios where a person can manipulate a situation, make themselves a victim, and they're not victims at all, as opposed to just communicating. Again, we go back to that manipulation versus communication. And I think some people, they weaponize, whether it's the police, they use their, women, we're often seen as, well, I shouldn't say that, but some people see us as weak. And so sometimes we play into that to get what we want. And it's not cool. But sometimes we play into that. We don't realize that we're playing into that. But sometimes we can very well play into that. Okay, we can kind of be selective. We pick and choose when we want to be strong, when we want to be weak. But we got to kind of balance it out and be real, be real and authentic about where we really are in terms of our femininity. We don't have to weaponize or play the victim or manipulate a situation to get what we want. Let's just be honest about what we really want and not, play victim.
Yeah. I know a lot of times for men, or most men, I'm pretty sure it is, we wouldn't associate toxic femininity with men. But when I listen to you explain it, I can see it. And I'll say this in the reverse. I've seen, if we're using race as as an example, I've seen where white men will call the police on black men over nothing. Music being played too loud, right? You got 4 or 5 young men who are out there playing their music, and some white guy walks by, or you're at your house, a white guy walks by, see you at your house, and I'm like, whose house is that? You like, it's my house. And it's like, there's no way that could be your house.
Yeah.
And they wind up calling the police on you, and you have to defend yourself about your own home. You're standing on, I've seen it several times online. You're on your property, standing in your driveway, and the police want to come in your house and have you prove that you live there. How about this guy? How about you make sure that this guy is telling the truth, as opposed to assuming I'm blind? If I'm standing here with no shoes on in front of my house, I mean, whose house could it be?
It's just that I not accepting that you could afford such a house.
Right.
You couldn't dare be that person. And so I'm afraid. If you're afraid, why are you standing in front of me in my face? If I was you, I would go home and then call the police. But if you're so threatened, why are we standing face to face with each other and you're arguing? So that's I'm afraid, and you're not that victim mentality. I'm afraid. What are you afraid of?
We call them the male Karen, right? It's the male Karen.
But Karens can be, white, black,
right?
It could be all, types. We don't, but the typical Karen is typically
the
people associated with being white,
exactly,
not black. But everybody can be a Karen from time to time.
So what I understood, because you and I talked about this before the show, but now what I understand very effectively is that femininity, or this toxic femininity, is a trait. It's a trait that can be, again, as we just described, can be utilized by man or woman.
Yeah.
Right? We see men who, and it's a manipulation, if you will, right? And that's really what we're talking about, is manipulation by one towards the other. Where in this instance, we talked about, this man is called the police, manipulating the police, or weaponizing, right? Weaponizing the police against this man for no reason. Same thing with women, they could do it as well. And what I really wanted people to understand is that is a trait, and it's a trait that both men and women have. Because again, you don't associate femininity usually with a man, unless sometimes, and this is no knock against gay men, but you normally, when you hear men say it, they're talking about gay men. They're not talking about straight men being feminine, where they could be that way. Hey, Dave Grogan is on. What's up, man? I appreciate it. He said, keep up the great work. Thank you, brother. If I want you to chime in as well. If you got anything to share with us, please, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nneka.
But the other thing that I want to talk about, identity, this is another toxic trait for a female. But again, it can go both ways. A person who builds their identity based on validation. So what I mean by that, you basically, you don't have an identity. You make your identity that whatever, you kind of morph yourself. You use like a chameleon. You be who that man wants you to be. And you don't have an identity of your, or you be what that woman wants you to be. So you build your identity based on, I need that validation. So I'm going to be everything that man or woman wants, so that I won't be alone. They won't leave me. And that's unhealthy. That is not healthy femininity, because now you're not being yourself. And I think men and women, but right now we're talking about women. Women have a tendency to do that, not necessarily show who they truly are, because they fear losing somebody. So you want that validation from that man. And so you morph yourself into who he is. And that's manipulation too now. You see how that works?
I do. And I got a question for you. And tell me if this is, some people might be upset when I say this. I have heard this, I don't know how many times, where men, husbands, have never seen their wives with a naked face, meaning without makeup. Like they're like, listen, you go ahead on the bed, I'm gonna take off this face. And before you wake up, I'm gonna get up an hour or two, Nneka, and get this face back on, so that you never see a naked face. Wow. You only see a made up face, made up hair, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, who does this? But I've heard about it a number of different times. That fits this category, right?
Oh, it does. Okay. Because it's a form of manipulation. You're not being your true, authentic self. You're saying to yourself, like, listen, in order for me to keep you, I gotta, what they call it, catfish? Do they call it catfish?
Yeah.
That's what they call it too. Yeah, so it's like, in order for you to accept me, I gotta look this way. I gotta look, when you met me, this is how I looked. So therefore I gotta keep this. And I remember, I've known a lot of women growing up. I had this neighbor. She was that person. I won't even say her. Of course, I won't say her name, but she would get up. I mean, I had never seen her without makeup, but she was very much, I'm going to look good for my man. You won't never see me slipping. You won't catch me slipping. I can't do that. My God. That I have not done. When Fred met me, I had a nice bob, all my natural hair, right? You get older, you start thinning. Fred do not care about hair. He said, I do not care about that. There was a time when he met me, I was super thin. When I got pregnant, gained a little weight, lost it. But, all those things, but I kept it on for a little while, right? So you have all these things that, if you are in a relationship with a superficial person,
that's it.
Woo, that's too much work.
I said, that's tough to keep up, isn't it? Like, that's a lot to do and maintain over years of just trying to be something you're not. We have I was talking to a frat brother of mine, and we were talking about how, and I believe this happens. I know it happens with women as well, with sororities. that they get lost in being that thing as opposed to being who they genuinely are. So they want to be referred to. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. They want to be referred to as Kappa Mike, if you will, or Kappa so and so, as opposed to or as opposed to being who they were born as, as Mike Johnson. And I'm like, that's crazy. I don't get into that. I'm like, if some even I'll give you another one, even as Silver Fox Squad, right? Because I'm a member of the Silver Fox Squad. I don't wear that as, I do wear it as a badge of honor, but you'll never hear me lead a sentence with I'm a Silver Fox, I'm Mike Johnson. As a matter of fact, I don't usually mention it because I just don't want people to know. If they know, they know. If they don't know, they don't know. I leave it where it is. I just don't lead like that. It's not something I want somebody to think of that first as opposed to me first.
What? Not saying that any of you do that, but I would think if somebody led with that, they're trying to what?
Manipulate, of course.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think any of us do it. I'm just saying, I've just used it as an example, right? But I've heard people, doing different things. Like, this was the funniest thing. I was somewhere and I was at a concert, as a matter of fact, and I walked out the concert to go to one of the vendors' booths because I wanted to see something. The guy, I think, I know he recognized me as being a member of the Silver Fox Squad because he said, I just walked up and said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" I was with my wife's uncle. I wish he was here because he helped me tell the story. He said, I'm a celebrity too. So Nneka, I'm looking at, and we look at each other, and I'm thinking he's talking to someone else, right? I turn around, look, it's just my wife's uncle and I. We bust out laughing. Nneka, we look at each other, we're like, what is on this guy's mind, right? But people do lead with that because they want to manipulate, right? And that's a man operating in that toxic femininity trait, as opposed to a woman doing it. But men do it all the time. They'll tell you, "Oh, I drive a Mercedes. I live in the house. I make $100 million. I'm a this, that, and the other."
Oh yeah.
I hear men saying it to other men. I'm like, who the hell cares?
What does that prove? What are you trying to get out of you saying that? What do you want to happen?
Right.
He said, "What'd you say, Dave?"
He said, I'm a celebrity too. I know, like, right, that. Dave? That's crazy. That is crazy.
But when you think about that, though, that's a person who is screaming for attention.
Yes.
And like I always say, there's always a why to behave. Because anytime you have to say, "Well, this is how much I'm making. I might pay this much for my house." It's like, why are you disclosing that?
Right. Yeah.
Because they feel like me saying that is going to that's going to validate who I am. You're going to maybe want to hang out. You may respect me more, or I'm like you, Michael Johnson with the Silver Fox Squad, it's like, and you don't even, like you said, you don't even lead with that. That's not even something you really even talk about when we're on here.
I don't talk about it at all. I have, people will ask me, say, I had a guy tell me this weekend, because I was interviewed for something. And once I was done, he was like, "Man, you didn't tell me." I said, "That's because I'm not going to say anything. If you ask me about it, then I'm going to tell you. But if you don't ask me, I'm not going to say anything because I don't feel the need to lead with that." I'm grateful to be a member. I'm very grateful. I'm honored, actually, to be a member, but I'm not going to lead with that because like you said, Nneka, that's operating that toxic femininity where it's manipulation, right? And I've seen people use their notoriety to manipulate people.
Yeah.
And that's just not me. I don't need it. Greg says, you're insanely insecure. You're 100% correct.
Yeah.
They are. They really, really, really. It says, Greg also said, they also think they are playing to their targeted superficial audience. You're right.
That is true. Probably he's trying to test that out on you, but you noticed that it was whack. He was just...
Listen, Nneka, whenever I hear men do that, I always think it's whack, because I'm like, why are you trying to impress another man? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, and maybe it's just me, but I'm never going to try to impress another man. That's just not something I'm interested in doing. Right. And I always think it's just odd that I see men do this, and because men don't get in these little groups. And now that you say it, I really understand the practice of toxic femininity. I really understand this principle, or this trait rather, because I've seen it happen to so many men. And Dave is right. It's a lot of times the insecure men that you'll meet, man, they are so good at practicing that. That's who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's just like what, what my husband does for a living. And we'll be places and I feel like I want him to say it because I don't know, because other people are doing it. And I'd be
Wait,
like,
you want him to say, "Oh, say he's an attorney"?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
because he's a VP for the company that he works for. And I'm like, he said, I don't want everybody to know that.
Exactly. Why?
And I respect that. But in some spaces, as his wife, I'm proud of him. He worked
Hmm.
really hard for it.
Yep.
But he's like you. He's like, I'm not, it's not
Nah.
necessary for me to say that.
You know why? Men who are secure in who they are,
Yeah.
they don't care about bragging about that stuff. They let other people do it for them, right? Like in
Yeah.
my mind, I think if I'm doing a great job, the greatest form of flattery is that somebody else will tell somebody else. I don't have to do it. If I feel like if I have to do it, and I'm sure Fred probably feels this way, and Greg, I mean Dave, I'm sure you probably feel this way. If I got to get out there and tell you I did that, what have I done?
Yeah.
I'm not all the man that I believe I am in my own mind. I call it the DJT syndrome, Donald, the other part of that syndrome where you got to always brag about something you doing or somebody you are and you really are not, right? Most people don't care for people like that.
Yeah, they got some serious issues.
Yeah, toxic femininity issues.
Right, mommy issues, daddy issues. You always want that attention.
But speaking of, I'm sorry, Nneka, I didn't mean to stop you, but hold on one second because I want you to for a second because I think you just said something. You dropped the nugget, and it might have been I don't want it to get missed.
Okay.
But these issues that people suffer of rather toxic femininity, is that something that comes from the parent? Is that something you inherit from a parent? Is that something? Because I don't think that's innate, right? I believe you learn that. I don't know if that's something that you're just born with, right?
You're absolutely right, Michael. I feel like I said, it can go both ways where you make your daughter or your son the center of everything.
Mm.
And they don't have to want for nothing. They don't have to work for nothing. So they go around, life, when they step outside of their, home, the family that has raised them, when they step out and they find that, man, everybody is not going to love you like your parents love you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, real life situations require you to, take a step back and let other people shine sometimes. And so I really do believe sometimes it does, come from whether it's a positive experience. I don't even want to say that that's positive, because if you're in a home and if you're in a family situation where your parents have made you think that you're the center of everything, that's not positive. But then you also be in this family situation where you're neglected, but there has to be some kind of happy medium where there's balance, where you don't think you're the center of everything and you don't think you nothing. So where do we find that healthy balance? So I think it can kind of go on both sides, where some people have just kind of overindulged their kids and some people have not done enough. So I really do feel like it comes from somewhere.
Dave said he believes that as well, that it's a learned behavior. I figured it was, because how else does that come about, right? Like how does that learn? Also, then I think about it, could it be a defense mechanism? So for example, when I was growing up, my parents didn't have a lot. I didn't grow up with a whole lot of like what I have now. Like I didn't have designer, or expensive. I had some of the cheaper stuff. And I remember seeing kids who they had all this stuff. And I remember wanting those things and saying to myself, because as a kid, you can't process, why don't you have it, but they have it?
Right.
And it's not because of something you did, or maybe even necessarily something your parents did. It's just a situation that they're in. They can't afford to, I know now, of course, as a young adult, I knew this. They couldn't afford to do that because why? They got bills they got to pay. So should I get you a new pair of shoes or should I pay this rent? Should I get you a new pair of Jordans or should I feed you tonight? Right. But you don't understand that as a kid. And so I wonder sometimes, is that a defense mechanism too? Right. Because you're projecting maybe what you might be one day, or, what you feel you are at that moment, although you really aren't.
No, I would agree that, yes. But I think the other thing that we have to be very careful of, because we often look at it from adult to adult, but sometimes people do that with their kids. Moms with their sons, wanting that attention. And, well, if you love me, look what all I've done for you. And, it's just like, don't do that to your kids. You had and I got to be very, I really try to be very careful, when your kids get older and they are living their lives, and you have, I don't know, some of these reality shows where these these mama
Mm,
and I got to take you on a date, if you love me more than her, the whole front seat situation thing. I think
mm-hmm.
we talked about that,
Yeah.
when
Mhm,
you have a girlfriend or a wife, and you got, your mothers, they're, everybody's hanging out, who get in the front, you know,
mhm,
and the mom like, well, I'm his mom. And, it's just like, it's just that, I don't know. It's just, some things just should not have to be battled. Right?
mhm,
And I get the whole front seat, back seat thing, but when a mother feels like she is owed certain things from her son, you owe me, that's a form of manipulation. It's just like, if I want you up front, if I want to take you on the ship, if I want to do these things, yes, let me voluntarily do these things. But you should not have your child feel like they're obligated to do anything for you. So
mm.
that's a form of manipulation when it comes to our kids. We got to be careful.
So I have a question for our audience. Do you guys feel like it's a form of manipulation when a parent makes a child feel like they must or they should do something? For example, Nneka, your example, adding to it, let's say a professional athlete, a young man, Dave said, real quick, I'm gonna put this up here because I thought this was good. He said emotional incest. I had never heard that before, but I love that. Is that a real term, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I never heard that. Man, that's good. That's really good. Thank you, Dave. I
Oh,
appreciate that.
yeah.
That's really good. Where a mom of an athlete is like, you know how many nights I had to work and how many floors I had to scrub and how many people's ass I had to kiss to make sure you could do this and this, and you can't buy me a house and a Mercedes. You like, and recently I've heard a couple of athletes come out and say this. They said, listen, talking to other pro athletes who are just turning pro, they was like, don't feel obligated to do that because your parents did it because that's what they wanted for you. At least that's what they should have wanted for you.
Yeah.
And because you got to realize at some point, the taking will never stop. So it's always okay. It's a house today. It's a car tomorrow. It's 100,000 over here. It's 2,000 over here, and the bleeding continues. And where does it stop? As a parent, and I would agree with you 100% that. Thank you, Dave. Again, emotional incest. I mean, we're parents. We didn't have kids to do this. And let me say this. I'm gonna stop because I've met people who were like, "I'm doing all this so my kids can pay me back."
Yeah.
I've met people, so I got to actually take that back. I've met people who have said, at the end of all this, I'm looking for payback.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm looking for some ROI, return on investment.
Yeah.
The love and the kisses and the thank you. I
Yeah.
want some material
Don't
behind that.
money, right?
We talked about this. Remember, Glorilla, she's having this problem with her sister right now,
Yeah.
right? It was someone else. I don't know if you remember who it
Fantasia's
was.
father.
Who was it?
Fantasia's father.
Thank you. That's the one I was looking for. Where
Yeah.
Fantasia's father was like, "Hey, I'm your dad. I know that's your husband, but you should be breaking me off."
But think about this though too, Michael. It's that indirect aggression. So
Mm,
indirect aggression is the gospel. Now I'm gonna spill all the beans. If you don't give me what I want, I'm telling.
manipulation.
Yep, I'm telling it all. And that's what he
Mhm.
did.
He did.
He started gossiping about his daughter and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
People will do that. If they don't get what they want, okay, I got something for you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna do this.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's sad, but true.
I've seen it. What, Nneka, is there a term for women who have kids so that the kids take care of them because they feel like no man or anybody else will ever take care of them? So they have kids to make sure that they're or daughters for that matter to make sure that they're taken care of. Is there a term for that?
Well, I know we often when we call it parentification when you have, let's say you have multiple kids, you have an older son or older daughter, and that said child is it, steps in the place of the man or the wife, the husband or the wife that's not there, the man or the woman that's not there. So
Mm-hmm.
in that case, that's called parentification, where
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people actually have kids, and it probably is something out there like that where people have kids to have, companionship, because they don't want to be alone. Um,
Mm-hmm.
But in the case where people have multiple kids without, a partner, they turn that older kid into their partner, and it's called parentification, where
Mm.
that older child is now standing in the gap for the partner that's not there.
Okay. Because I've heard of people saying, I don't have a husband or whatever, so my kids just gonna have to not just not just physically take care of me in terms of like paying or rent or whatever, but I need some company. So they
Wow.
gonna be here with me, and because I don't have no man. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah. That's
You know,
like
that's that
like
manipulation.
it's the emotional incest. It really is. Like the gentleman said, um,
Mm-hmm.
that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate that people have kids and make them feel like they owe them something. Now, if they want to give it, I would think that in a healthy relationship, that child, if they're making millions of dollars, they want to take care of that parent.
Mm-hmm.
They want to buy that house. They want to buy that car. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
problem at all. So it's just like, but if it's not a healthy situation, and all of a sudden, the dad is showing up, here you have a son that made it to the pros, and you ain't been around. And then as soon as he make it to the pros, now you want to be in the pictures and be this proud dad because you want something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like most men and women, if it's a healthy relation, if it's a healthy situation, they don't mind helping out their
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just been seeing a lot of athletes now saying, look, let me give you some advice. Don't make that a habit. Put them
Really?
on payroll. Yeah, put them on payroll. Make them work for it. Don't just give it to them like maybe mom, okay, break her off, do this thing over here, but don't make it a habit. Because
Yeah.
how are you supposed to live? I mean, if you make hundreds of $1,000,000, you can certainly live, right?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
break your mom off $1,000,000 is nothing like spitting on a fire.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, I really feel like if it's a healthy situation, no one is gonna mind helping out mom or dad for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear? I don't know. Have you seen the Tyler Perry documentary
I've not.
called Maxine's Baby? You gotta watch that. We won't go into it, but it was some similarities to what we're talking about now. It was just really like
Mm.
wow, what he went through with his father, which ended up not being his father, and just the manipulation in those kind of situations where you feel like because they're your parent or they raised you, you owe them something. So it's that
Mm.
obligation.
Mm.
Yeah,
Is this actual Tyler Perry story or
it's his story. Yeah,
oh wow, okay, no, I had not heard about this.
it's called Maxine's Baby. I think it's on.
Mm.
Is it on Prime? I forget what did I watch. I watched. Yeah, I love documentaries. Yeah, maybe on Prime or Netflix, one of those, or Hulu. Yeah, but it's worth it to watch.
Okay, I'll check that out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to have this conversation tonight about this toxic femininity because we don't always
Mhm.
we don't want to ascribe this just to women
Yeah.
because there are some men, and if we weren't on here, I mean, I know we never ascribed, at least I never ascribed that term to men. We always called them bitchs
When they what?
when
When they're
they acted like that.
okay. You're like a little
I don't want to use no curse words
I
on here,
know. I know.
but it
But
was
this
that type of
that's
behavior.
funny.
Yeah, yeah, just that type of behavior. Because I would have never ascribed that to man, but I understand now that again, it's a trait that
Yeah.
not just should be ascribed to women, but can also be ascribed to men as well.
Yeah. Manipulation, control, dominance, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Both sexes can, do that. But they gotta know they're doing it though. I really
Oh yeah.
some people just do it and don't realize they're doing it. And not trying to give them a pass, but if people don't call it out,
Mm-hmm.
when the woman cries all the time because she want to get her way and the man keeps giving her way, what do you expect? That's what she's gonna continue to do.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm gonna tell you what I saw this in. I saw this in a lot of marriages where, and this was very toxic. I mean, extremely, extremely, extremely toxic. Where women would say, "All right, if you don't," they didn't say this out loud. It was just a practice. If you don't give me what I want or do what I want you to do, I won't have sex with you. And
Oh,
I would tell women all the time. I was like, "Okay, so let me just understand this. You're gonna withhold sex. Got it. Understood." Just because you won't give that man sex, do you not think the 1 billion women out here won't? That's not a bargaining tool, and it should never be used as a bargaining chip because you're never going to win with it. In fact, you're going to force somebody away from you who potentially cares about you, but because you decided to put that on the block as a bargaining chip, as this little carrot you keep dangling.
Yeah.
Most men don't see that as something to be dangled in front of them. That's what comes along with being married. If you don't want to be married, and if you got issues, that's one thing. But I'm talking about you're perfectly fine, and you just said you won't buy me a new car. All right, you won't buy me a new purse. I want a Birkin bag. You won't buy me a new bracelet. You won't upgrade my ring. And it's usually something tied to finances, right? That this is happening. And now that I look back on it, those were all forms of time. And don't get me wrong, men might say that too, meaning if you don't give me that, I won't do. Right?
Oh yeah.
I'll withhold that part of me which you want until you give me what I want. Yeah.
I don't see how people, and the sad part is that that's actually happening more.
100%. That's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've ran into that many, many times. And I asked the woman, I was like, because a lot of times I saw it with women, and I just said, so you think that works? He was like, well, he'll usually give in. And I'm saying to myself, how long has it been? 2 months, 3 months, a year?
But I guess in an immature relationship, Michael, when you're in an immature relationship, maybe that have worked for some women, some men on the other end. But when you get into a mature, sophisticated relationship, that doesn't fly. But if they've been getting away with that with men, like you said, transactional, you've said that a lot, and that's what it is. And so some people don't necessarily, grow up in that area. It takes somebody to say, listen, you cannot use sex as a form of manipulation to get what you want, because no one has said it. These immature relationship people are in and out of relationships, so they don't care. I don't have to deal with this long term. But when you're in a long-term relationship, that's not gonna fly. Every time I want something and I don't give it to you, you're gonna withhold sex from me. Or you're gonna withhold, affection. What for men can withhold and withdraw too.
Yeah. That's why I say it goes both ways. Yep. That's why I didn't just say just a woman. And I recently just was watching a couple of things, and we talk about this transactional relationship now. Like transactional relationships are so popular right now, where we've seen the young lady say, well, you can't take me to Cheesecake Factory. Whoa, you don't have any money and you don't, so I can't take you there on a date. Or before we go on a date, you got to pay for my hair, my nails, and all the rest of this other stuff to get ready for the date we're going to go on, which I may not even like you. And I might decide halfway in the date, I don't even want to be with you.
Yeah.
Like it's literally a form of, and I see young guys, I feel so bad for them. They do it. And you see, and the crazy thing is the manipulation is so strong and powerful that you will see young men going out of their way, almost damn near killing themselves to, make themselves this, which they aren't, for this woman who's only wants to use them. So for this, it also goes the other way, right? For men as well, who are using these women, because we see men using women every single day. But, sometimes I say to myself, you had to know that you were being used. Like this was a transaction. You knew that you couldn't live up to that standard. Yeah. Why even try?
Manipulation. We go back to that. I want to be seen as strong and powerful and in control. I'm a leader, and I can, you don't want to be honest with yourself in terms of where you are in life with your finances. It's just like, again, it's manipulation. So I'm gonna buy you. I never understood why people put so much emphasis on material things. Well, I understand it, but I don't understand because it's not long lasting. It's so, I don't know. It's not sustainable. It's just like, man, I couldn't imagine, like for Valentine's Day, holidays and stuff. Me and Fred are not big gift givers. We do trips and we do things together. But I'm not my love language is not gifts, and you got to spend a whole lot of money on me. I just don't need that. But I want other things. So I want things that are more sustainable. And, buying me things is not sustainable. Like, don't buy me nothing. I ain't got no room to fit nothing nowhere. So don't buy me nothing. I be telling people, for my birthday, write me a letter. Don't buy me a gift. Don't buy me no clothes. I don't want none of that. Write me a letter. And that's what Fred normally does. He writes me a letter. Because my kids know, I'm like, don't buy me nothing. Write me a letter. That's what I want from your heart. Don't buy me no card. Write me a letter for Mother's Day, birthdays. So yeah, so I guess people are just different in terms of how they've been brought up in their life experiences, what speaks love to them.
Yeah, and that's a part of that financial trauma or whatever that trauma is, right? So people like that. I'm like stepping out the same way. So we don't exchange like cards for anything. I don't like Valentine's Day. We avoid going out on Valentine's Day because we know so many people who are going out, right? Like I don't even like it. Like I've told my parents, my kids, y'all don't have to buy me no cards. At this point, time is more important to me. Oof. Like I'd rather have your time than have something you bought from me. I can buy that myself. I don't need you to buy. That's not anything in the world somebody could give me at this point, for the most part that I'm aware of. There's something that I really want that I can't get for myself, right? At this point, it's time because I understand the value of time now. So I want to spend time with people I want to spend time with. And when you can't get that, that's something else, right? So for me, I'm the same way. We don't do that. We spend a lot of time, Steph and I spend a lot of time together, and just buying something is pointless. I'm like, if you want something, just buy it at the point where you want it. You ain't got to wait for Valentine's Day. You don't have to wait for Christmas. Right. You don't have to wait for your birthday. If you say you want us to go get a new car, you feel like you want a new car, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's go get you a new car, right? Yeah. I don't want to wait till your birthday or Valentine's Day. Let's just go do it.
Yeah. Be able to finish what you start. That's the thing.
Oh.
Start off that way. He didn't start off, buying me all these things. I don't know if you watch Married to Medicine. Do you?
I've seen a couple, but not a lot.
But
yeah,
I don't even want to say that. But there's this one reality star. She's not married, but she was married to a doctor on there. But she has this new boyfriend. And when they first, met, she was cooking every single day. She was saying she's cooking every single day, that, to get him. I feel like that's manipulation. You started cooking every day. He's a man that likes that. Now she don't want to do it. So it's just like, start off how you gonna finish. Things that you can't maintain and keep up. I'm gonna cook for you every day. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Be able to finish what you start. That's a form of manipulation because you can't do that. If you're working, don't do it.
Nneka, I tell men all the time, listen, however you got her, that's how you're gonna have to keep doing it. If you started off with, dangle that new car in front of her, this that you slipped her 300 over here, 500 over here. Let me tell you something. You got to stay at that level or you got to go higher. And most women are going to let you stay at that level for a long time. You're going to have to bump it up at some point.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I mean, you don't pretend. In fact, I know someone, a married couple I know. The guy started off doing that. The woman wound up leaving him. Yeah, she wound up leaving for that very because he could not keep up that standard. And it was almost, I'm going to be honest with you, Nneka, at a point I looked at that and I said to myself, she's a witch, this. And I had to go back and look and repent almost and say, well, wait a minute. He trained her that way. If you trained her that way, what is she supposed to expect? Like, that's the expectation you set. That wasn't the one she said. Now, it might have been manipulation from her part to say at the beginning, well, do you think you could buy me this? Because, she could have did that. And he could have easily said, nah, I don't have it to do. And she would have had a choice, either walk away or stay.
Yeah.
But people, like you said, they don't want to be honest. They don't want to put it on the table, come out the gate saying, imagine if somebody was honest. Two people were honest. Oh, and I've seen this now where they have these honesty things online where it's a speed date and they tell the truth. The woman comes and say, hey, how you doing? The guy says, I'm doing fine. She's like, all right, let's get to it. And the dude was like, all right, come on, let's go. And the woman will say, can you cook? And the dude is like, nah. And then she was like, will you cook? And he's like, nope, I'm not cooking. She said, well, how many days do you think you cook? 3 days? He's like, nope, I ain't doing it. And she's like, well, can you cook one day? He said, you know what? I can cook one day. She's like, all right, cool. How many days can we go? And he's like, I want to go on a date 3 times a week. She's like, nope, I'm too tired for that. Let's go on one. He's like, bet. All right, cool. My turn. And they're just being very honest. Yeah, and they're being very honest. And somebody helped me out. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's a breath of fresh air. And at the end of it, the girl says, nah, it ain't going to work. And they actually, at the end of the conversation, and it's like only 5 minutes. End of the conversation, the girl said, you know what? It ain't going to work. And the dude's like, you know what? It's not going to work. You know what? It was nice meeting you. All right, boom, bam, boom, bye.
No time.
No time at all. And then the girl looks back at her girlfriend. Why you set me up with him? You knew he couldn't. It's that whole kind of thing like that. But it was very refreshing because the people were honest. What we have now is no one is honest. It's like, you know, do you want kids? Yeah, I want 3 kids. Knowing you don't want kids, you can't even have kids. Hold on a second. You want to marry somebody and you can't have kids, and you done told them you want 3 kids? Do you know what that does to a person, to a marriage? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Or that, you know, your dreams or aspirations are one thing and you only say it because you know that's what's going to curry favor with them, and you're going to eventually wind up getting them. But then you wind up losing them because you couldn't do or uphold the thing you said you were, you know, be able to do.
Like you said, you know, you got to be honest. You got to be honest with people and let the chips fall where they may. If you don't want kids, and a lot of people, you know, you have a lot of women who do not want kids.
I've seen it. I see it every day.
And you have men who are not necessarily tolerating that. They're like, nope, I want kids. But
yeah.
You go in telling somebody that you're going to bear some children for them. But what happens if you can't, though? Like, you know, it's not so much.
And don't lie. You got to tell them that.
Yeah.
You know, you got to say, I can't have kids. Some men are like, I'm okay with you not having kids. Let's adopt. Right.
Yeah.
And then some men are like, well, wait a minute. You never told me you couldn't have kids.
Yeah.
And this is the manipulative part where you never asked me. Well, that's something you got to put on the table. If somebody tell you they want kids and you can't have kids, you got to, and that's from a man or a woman, because there's some men who can't have kids. You got to put that on the table.
You do. You
got to put that on the table. You cannot deceive someone like that.
You have to communicate. Like I said, that manipulation versus communication, and it's just like no one's reading your mind. Like you said, you didn't ask me. What?
Yeah,
I gotta ask you that. Something so, you know, important for a relationship. I gotta ask you that. You wouldn't like violate that information.
That's too important. Hey, Nneka, I want to get ready to shut this down because we almost at an hour, but I do have one quick question for you before we go. We'll spend like maybe 1-2 minutes. How can a person get out of a relationship with someone who has that feminine toxicity trait? How can they get out of it?
Get out of it?
Or how do you deal with someone rather and get out of the relationship? How do you, I guess, deal with someone, like I say, a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case is? How do you deal with them? How do you deal with that? And then what if you just like, you know what, I can't do this. Like this, it's just too much. How do you get out? How do you end that relationship?
Well, it really depends. I mean, I think some people, you know, some men normalize that behavior, Michael, and they're with it because some people are just used to chaos. And so that just becomes part of their norm. And so people, just like an abusive relationship, some people just stay in it because that's what they know. You have to recognize that you're in that situation and recognize that it's not healthy. And if it's, I guess if it's starting to impact your health, where, you know, you got the aggression, you got the manipulation, you got the dominance, the control, you know, all those things are forms of abuse. So if it's starting to impact your overall mental health, I think you got to ask yourself that question, like, how is this impacting me, you know, my total wellness? And if it's impacting you in that way, I feel like you got to put yourself first. But I think you got to start asking yourself the right questions, like, how is this impacting my mental health and my physical health? Because, I mean, we can get into it a lot deeper than what we've got into, but, you know, being in a toxic feminine relationship or toxic masculine relationship is taxing. Very taxing. You can't necessarily, it's predictable in a way that's not healthy. And like, who wants to think that this is the way I'm going to live the rest of my life? So at first, I think you just got to think, you got to know for yourself what it is. And if it's unhealthy, if it's impacting your mental and your physical health, you got to take steps toward, you know, moving away from that relationship. Have you heard of, this is a little more extreme, have you heard of the battered woman, battered man syndrome?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like that. It could be a form of abuse. And sometimes people they rationalize why to be there. And so I think if you're in that kind of situation, you got to ask yourself, how is this impacting me overall? And then you have to make decisions for yourself.
Right. Thank you so much, Will. We're going to get ready to wrap it up here. We want to say thank you guys for watching. Next week, Nneka, I do have a topic for us. I want to talk about protecting Black women next week, because I sent you the clip of Teyana Taylor. A man pushed her at the Oscars, and she had to, I saw one Black guy that was right there, I saw a couple of white guys were right there.